Racing-wise, Willie Mullins trained a hat-trick of winners on the opening day of the Cheltenham Festival, perhaps the pick of those being 6-5 on favourite Footpad in the Arkle, but he was beaten, Mullins, his main charger Mellon, in the feature race of the day, the champion hurdle by the Nicky Henderson trained Bouverdere, who retained his title as a 6-4 on favourite. And Rob Kearney is expected to be fit for Saturday's Grand Slam decider with England. That's despite sitting out today's training session for Ireland at Carton House. Both Cian Healy and Jonathan Sexton also took a full part in training today. Worries easing over their fitness with Twickenham Fast approaching. Nathan,
thanks Richie. Time for the football show.
The Football Show on Off the Ball,
brought to you by the Boylesports app. Cash out and in-play betting available in the App Store and Google Play Store.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Welcome along to Tuesday's football show. Nathan and Dan with you this evening. 53106 is the text number. You can leave a comment on Facebook, where we are live on facebook.com/off the ball. We're on YouTube, Periscope, all the social channels. As always, it is scoreless between Manchester United and Sevilla. They're heading for the midway point of the second half. They may well be heading for extra time as well in the last 16 of the Champions League. It hasn't been great so far from Manchester United. They've had their moments, but Sevilla have probably had the best chances of the game so far, certainly in the second half. Two better than half chances, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. The two reasonably good opportunities, and Muriel, we spoke earlier with Andy West earlier in the show about Sevilla's approach, and he was, they were expecting them to not want their pace to be exploited and to be conservative enough in their approach, but they've had their moments breaking out in this game, and they're at the stage now where one goal will do them, and it's making for an interesting conclusion. We've got Pogba involved now, and I suppose Manchester United recognising they need to be a bit more dynamic in their play, and there has been pressure, and there's been moments where a bit of a better final ball, and they should be there. They should be good enough to get this done, but it's way more delicately poised now than I thought it would be with 25 minutes to go.
Rashford has just won them a free kick right on the edge of the Sevilla area, so that might be a chance. As Dan said, Paul Pogba is on. He's replaced Marouane Fellaini in midfield for Manchester United, so still scoreless there. Alexis Sanchez has been terrible again tonight. Every time I see him in possession of the ball, he gives it away.
Yeah.
Like, there was a simple pass there out to the right wing to Jesse Lingard. All he had to do was just float it over one defender, and he completely slices it, and that free kick comes to nothing. It's trying to be a bit too smart. Marcus Rashford trying to curl it in to the top corner at the back post, and it's well over the top of the crossbar.
Yeah, Rashford has been more lively, I think, since half time. There's been a bit of activity on that side, but again, sometimes it's that overhit cross or that overhit free kick. Again, it's just the execution, and he's looking a bit exasperated, a bit frustrated there. So
has Alexis Sanchez engaged in some sort of self-sabotage over the last 5-6 months at Arsenal, or he really didn't give a damn, and now he's struggling to find his mojo again? He's
lost it. I mean, he's not necessarily a sympathetic character, Sanchez, right, in terms of some of the theatrics when he was at Arsenal and so on. The one bit of sympathy I have for him is that it feels like he's been playing football non-stop for around 3 years, with Chile and some of those summers that he had, and there was always the fear that there would be an element of burnout at one point. And it would
I do remember doing a game and having a statistic, and ended up spending an evening looking at who had played the most games since the 2014 World Cup, and he was about 30 games more than anybody else.
Yeah, it's sort of insane, really, like the schedule that he had, and sometimes that catches up with you too, over a period of time. Now, he's still, I don't know how old he is now. I mean, he's still got a fair bit of, should have a fair bit of football left in him. But I mean, maybe it wasn't that inspired by that you thought when he is struggling. I mean, you're going for more conspiracy theory based idea where he was agitating for it, and he's lost whatever it was that made him magic.
He spent so much time downing tools that he's now struggling to pick them up again.
Gain the tool. Well, I mean, it's like it's horse racing week. They say sometimes, if you disappoint a horse too many times and don't encourage them to go and win every day, then they just forget. They get used to.
He's forgotten how to win.
They get used to go out for a jog when they're not fully fit, and they don't know what to do when the finishing line is there.
I thought my analogy was better, but listen, we'll give you that one because it has the Cheltenham factor as well.
It's topical, yeah.
Michael Fallon says Derry have a stronger emotional attachment to their stadium than others. At best, you're trying to wind up every other club in the country.
Does Michael Fallon have a little club emoji there or something?
I don't know. That was like yesterday, where I didn't even get involved in the Jamie Carragher thing, but randomly people start tweeting me as if I cared one way or another.
Yeah.
But every single person who was outraged has some sort of Manchester United Old Trafford banner behind them.
Yeah, it's amazing really, but it was the same of course with Suarez and other debates as well, that it's amazing how people's even opinions on matters related to pretty sensitive subject matter, yet they always seem to fall in line with whatever club that they supported. Wasn't that really sort of an extraordinary thing, really? I mean, I always have a great bit of respect for the people who are the avid Liverpool fans who are condemning him and want him to go. And I don't think he should go, but at least they're going against the grain and they're showing a bit of independent thought rather than letting their club allegiances just guide.
Are you a real supporter of independent thought?
Probably not. No, I mean, you're probably not welcome. But I mean, this is the thing. The Manchester United fan who's avidly supporting Carter to stay and saying everyone's lost. I'm up for those people. They've got their own mind. We're
going to get to Jacob Steinberg in a moment, but we better give a minute to the League of Ireland. We already spoke to Kenny Shields. You can listen back to that at offtheball.com. It'll be up very shortly. But Dundalk Cork, I was watching it on Friday night, and Cork, as champions, showed a fragility and just seemed to absolutely lose the plot.
Yeah, I maybe lose the plot's a bit strong.
Well, in the first half, they certainly seemed as though they were on the verge of losing the plot, just flying into challenges. It was a miracle that they didn't have somebody sent off. They had to take off McCormack inside, 20 minutes?
Yeah, I know. To take off your captain inside 20 minutes is highly unusual, and reflected that he was struggling and there was a few rows. I guess in a way we're speaking now on Tuesday, and they've recovered since then by beating Shamrock Rovers at home. So any analysis of that to suggest, well, does this trouble you about Cork's mental state in some way for the year ahead? They've answered that question in a significant manner by beating a rival 3 days later. But I still think, from the Dogs' point of view, they will attach big significance to that victory, because they'd forgotten how to beat Cork. They had been mentally weaker in the games with Cork, who would seem to have got into their head and got the one over on them. And Dundalk, for them, I mean, they celebrated it, in a sort of a frenzied manner at full time. They're entitled to do it. They still drop points away to St Patrick's Athletic on Monday night, and they have, aside from hammering Limerick, they've only scored 1 goal in 4 games, and I still think the fear for them will be, there's been a small bit of a role reversal, not quite, but Dundalk were the entertaining team. Cork were the more tight defensive one, and now Cork have become a bit more entertaining, and Dundalk need to figure out how to be a bit more entertaining and fluid in the final third.
Wild tangent, what's the thinking about playing games on a Monday night? I don't like it.
Well, they have no option really when they have to try and fit a 36-game season into the schedule they allow. I would
clash with Champions League.
How do you mean?
If they play on a Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, Tuesday,
yeah. It just feels on a Monday. So, like, as you say, you mentioned Cork against Dundalk. That's sort of out of date already by now, because there was games last night, and they have a TV programme every Monday night that's reviewing games while there's games currently going on that they don't actually show you anything from.
No, that's a flaw. I mean that winds me up as well. And again, I mean, some of the footage of the Derry game did come out today. Really, what it comes down to, a simple answer is, if clubs were more willing to have a longer season and extend it by 2 or 3 weeks, then there would be less need for Monday night games. But that there's different views on how long you want the seasons. But they have extended it a bit, and it went from a 12 team to a 10 team, from 33 games to 36. So there are factors there. They're taking a couple of weeks off in the summer, the mid-season break for around the World Cup time. Some clubs that aren't that well off wouldn't like that. Wouldn't like it. Sorry, if that break was removed in terms of part-time players. I think when you've got full-time players and 52-week contracts, is a sort of a 12-week off season really viable going forward? I would say probably not.
Oh, Sevilla scored! Sevilla have scored! And they're celebrating on the pitch. It was coming as well. They've been all over United for the last couple of minutes, and Sevilla have scored at Old Trafford, and Manchester United need to score twice in 17 minutes or they're going out of the Champions League.
This is their moment.
Woo. Well.
Going to the corner flag. Is that the same corner flag where Mourinho ran with Porto all those years ago?
I was thinking that exact same thing.
I think it might be, because the celebrations are similar. There's various sort of ancillary characters getting involved.
A ball straight through the middle of the 2 centre backs, and then a brilliant finish down low into the bottom right hand corner. Just trying to see who it was who finished it off. Nothing David De Gea. It was put right in by the post.
Sub Ben Yedder, I think it is, isn't it? I think he was after. Yeah, Ben Yedder, who was I think Andy West mentioned earlier, he was first choice earlier in the season and was left on the bench tonight. But he was their plan B. He's been brought in. I mean, they've played through them quite easily. This is the thing. It's not.
Well, that's the third time in the second half they played straight through the middle of the United side, and well, this is a disaster for Manchester United. They're 1-0 down at home. There are 16 minutes remaining, and it's probably been coming. So, Jose Mourinho, this has not been one of these masterclasses. This is not a great Sevilla side. They were very, very defensive. They haven't created anywhere near enough opportunities. Really, they should have just gone out and tried to show a little bit of class.
And they haven't taken, as we mentioned earlier, in a very strong prediction for Manchester United that is not going to age well, but they haven't taken a point Sevilla against the top 4 clubs in Spain this year. They haven't been a big game team, and it's not as if they've had this in their locker this year, and yet I mean, they've been more resilient in terms of the challenge that this knockout football presented.
All right, plenty more to come from that. We'll be going to Kevin Kilbane on the full-time whistle. United 1-0 down, 15 minutes to get back into the game and score twice. We wanted to talk about West Ham after the pretty unsavoury scenes at the Olympic Stadium over the weekend. The unrest came as West Ham were beaten 3-0 at home to Burnley. The game overshadowed by several pitch invasions, which saw club captain Mark Noble push a supporter to the ground. The owner, David Sullivan, was struck by a coin. All in all, a quite poisonous atmosphere within the stadium. Guardian football writer Jacob Steinberg is on the line. Jacob, what we saw Saturday was something very out of kilter from your now typical Premier League matchday experience, but I guess it didn't come really as a surprise to people who've been covering West Ham in recent months.
No, not at all. I mean, it's not often that you see a Premier League game descend into such chaos, but the London Stadium has had quite a few moments in its brief time as a football ground in which trouble has played. It happened on a couple of occasions last season, and infamously there was the Chelsea League Cup tie in October 2016 where there was quite a lot of violence and clashes between the two sets of fans. And after that game, there were measures put in place by the stadium operators, and the club looked and tried to get in better security. And actually, since then, it's not actually really been any kind of problems there. But on Saturday, before Saturday's game, the anger had been building towards the club's board. Before the game, there was all this talk of the protest march against the club's board, which was going to, if it had happened, I think it would have taken place from Upton Park, the side of the old ground, and gone through to Stratford. But in the end, that didn't happen. And there's obviously been a lot of talk about the rift between the two of the fan groups who were involved in the in the organisation of that march.
Yeah, you might talk to us about that, because there's clearly huge issues between the fans and the club's owners, but what's become quite public over the past week in particular is that division between the West Ham supporters groups, and quite a dangerous, quite a toxic situation that's been developing. You might explain what's been going on behind the scenes.
Well, there's a group called the Real West Ham Fans Action Group who have since dropped the action from their name and are now known as the Real West Ham Fans Group. They were set up by two of the founder members had links with the former Intercity firm, which was the hooligan firm, associated, as it were, with West Ham in the 1970s and 80s. They were part of a broader fan coalition, which I think involves 15 fan groups, who met with Karen Brady on 2 occasions last month. That fan coalition also involved the West Ham United Independent Supporters Association, who have also been quite anti-board. And after the second meeting, the Real West Ham Fans Action Group suddenly decided that the march was off, and they were satisfied with Karen Brady's. They thought that they'd achieved a dialogue with Brady, and that everything was going to get a bit better now. However, the WISA, the other group, at the behest of its members, thought that things hadn't actually got any better. They wanted to lead a march still. Its members had told it to do so. And the other group it kind of erupted, and the relations between the two groups broke down. And there were quite a lot of threats made towards the chairman of WISA, both online, and he received quite a lot of a few messages from unknown numbers to his threatening messages to his phone. And the club hasn't really seen fit to condemn. It's remained silent about the abuse that Mark Walker, the head of WISA, has received. And I think that's in itself exposes some of the reasons that that many fans are unhappy with the board. Just this sense of a lack of connection and dysfunction within the club.
You mentioned Andy Swallow and Mickey Morgan, founder members of that intercity firm, and the breakdown between the Real West Ham fans group and some of the other associations. Swallow and Morgan, with their background, is it just West Ham's best interest that they go into these conversations, or is that fans group almost a vehicle for some of their other views as well?
It's not entirely clear. I mean, what we can say is that people have a past. If maybe what you've done in the 70s and 80s doesn't necessarily reflect what you're going to be doing in 2018. West Ham would argue that, given that they were the group leading the march, it was reasonable for them to meet representatives from the Real West Ham fans group. And they also argue that they weren't aware of what might occur and of the backgrounds of two of these people, despite knowing that they were associated in the past with the ICF. What has emerged in the past day, reported by me and Miguel Delaney in The Independent, is that a fan 3 days before, and this is a fan not associated with WISA and who wishes to remain anonymous, alerted the club to posts, a few abusive posts that he had received on Facebook from one of the members of the Real West Ham fans group, and he just said to the club, I think maybe you should realise who you're meeting with. And the club responded by saying, and this was supporter services saying, please effectively take this to Facebook and the police. And West Ham say that this wasn't communicated higher up the chain and that Karen Brady and other senior members weren't alerted to this, which raises questions about why they didn't see fit to do so. And they went and they met these people, and now we can see how it's kind of blown up in their faces.
The march didn't take place then on Saturday. Maybe it will take place ahead of the next home game against Southampton. Is there anyone then working behind the scenes to try and sort that situation, to sort the divide between the supporters group, to try and get some sort of a dialogue going? Because that does sound like it's quite a dangerous situation that's potentially developing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's 3 weeks before the Southampton game, and the police have already decided that it's going to be a Category B fixture rather than a Category C fixture, which is what the Burnley game was, which explains why the police weren't in the ground to deal with some of the trouble that occurred on Saturday. It's not entirely clear whether any kind of protest will take place. The LLDC and the Safety Advisory Group will have to sort of spend the next 3 weeks analysing, see whether there's any kind of information to suggest that anything might take place inside or outside the ground. The Real West Ham fans group released maybe something of a mysterious statement on Twitter last night, talking about a static protest about an hour before kickoff, before the Southampton game. I'm not entirely sure what a static protest means, whether I'm not being funny here, but perhaps it just means that they're going to gather right outside the ground rather than lead some kind of march. I'm not sure as well whether that's against the board or exactly what that means at the moment. But we've got 3 weeks for them to work out what that exactly means. It's not as far as I'm aware, the club has no plans to deal with this particular group. If they start to announce plans, though, for another protest, then will that change? We'll have to wait and see.
What are the main issues for the fan supporters groups when they go and meet the owners? Is it the atmosphere within the ground? Is it the lack of security? Is it the results? Is it the change in management? Is there anything that unites them, or are people going there with various different complaints?
Yeah, it's quite disparate, and at times I think what's transpired over the last month or so with the meeting with 15 different fan groups that Karen Brady held the first one was with 15, and then the second one was with only the ones who could make it in the snow that obviously hit London during that period, is that there wasn't necessarily a great unity over what each fan group wanted. And I think that West Ham probably, perhaps, and it's going to be WISA, need to set up some kind of supporters trust. West Ham have a supporters advisory board. A lot of supporters see that as something of a kind of a yes group who don't really challenge the club at all. So a trust might be something that would be beneficial in the future. In terms of what the problems are, I think that effectively it goes back to the decision to leave Upton Park. Now, if West Ham were were delivering on the promises that were made when that move happened, which is that it was going to take them to the next level, I don't think you'd be seeing any of this kind of trouble. It's not just about if they'd beaten Burnley, there wouldn't have been any trouble. It's the fact that they were also in the position of having to beat a team in March to ease their relegation fears, when the idea was that it was going to help them challenge the big clubs in England. Instead, we've seen a lack of investment, managers and players undermined, a stadium that's not fit for football, and it's very hard to see exactly how the board comes back from that because the trust is broken.
Yeah, the supporters were sold the idea that essentially they'd won the lotto, but now it feels as though they've lost the ticket and they're not getting any benefits. And even looking at the revenue last season, their first year at the Olympic Stadium, it certainly doesn't deliver what they were expecting. A 9 million increase in revenue, where again they were sold that this was going to take them up to that next level where they could be challenging for Champions League football. Ultimately, if they do go and meet the owners and security sorted out, they are given assurances about the future of the club. If results improve, the problem is they're still going to be stuck in the Olympic Stadium. They're still going to be 80 feet from the pitch. They'll still never have that atmosphere of Upton Park.
No, I mean, there is the potential, though, even though the stadium isn't great for a good team to be put together. Although the stadium isn't great, you could still have a good team in a bad stadium. But West Ham obviously haven't had that, and I think you could probably, on one hand, count a number of memorable games that have taken place there, which is part of the problem. The last few transfer windows have each been disastrous in different ways, and even if certain improvements have made on the stadium front, it's just hard to see what they're doing in the transfer market that's working for them at the moment. In January they let go of, say, Andre Ayew and let him go to Swansea, a relegation rival. He helped Swansea beat West Ham quite convincingly 2 weekends ago. Diafra Sakho was allowed to go. They didn't sign the defensive midfielder that they intended to sign last summer either. In the end, what happened was they signed a striker, Jordan Hugill, from Preston North End of the Championship, who hadn't really done too well for Preston in that division and has barely played for West Ham since then. The other thing they did about a week after the transfer window was sign a 36 or 37-year-old Patrice Evra on a free transfer 5 months after he'd been released by Marseille for kicking a fan. No offence to Evra, who was a great player in his day, one of the best defenders in Europe, but in terms of West Ham's ambition and their planning and focus and structure in their recruitment drive, it doesn't say a lot for it.
You were there on Saturday, and clearly looking from afar, the optics weren't good when you end up with supporters on the pitch, supporters fighting in the stands, coins been thrown at the director's box. Did it feel like a dangerous situation? Did it feel like actually it could have got even worse, that we could have ended up with a situation where people were ending up seriously injured?
I think that obviously the big worry that I think I had was the lack of response when the first fan ran onto the pitch and was able to get so far that he could confront Mark Noble, and that there were altercations between James Collins and Burnley's Ashley Barnes, providing maybe one of the more humorous moments of the afternoon, tripping one of the pitch invaders. But I think that you don't have to use your imagination too much to see a scenario where maybe a fan comes on and has some kind of weapon, or just comes on and strikes a player. The security in that regard, for nobody to actually react and come onto the pitch to stop the fan as soon as he's got on there, I think was probably the most worrying aspect. In terms of the protest and the demonstration below the director's box, just for the configuration for the stadium, you really have to go to great lengths and sort of climb up into the director's box from where they were to get there. So I didn't think that anything was really going to happen after that. And obviously there was the Sullivan and Gold were eventually escorted from their seats. That said, the coins and missiles that were thrown into the boxes, and also not just the director's box, but in the boxes that were neighbouring the director's box as well, there were stray missiles that ended up in those areas as well. And that those are boxes that house, say, fans who paid for a corporate day out or something as well, and aren't really associated with the board. And in that sense, yeah, the safety when missiles are being thrown is a huge concern.
It did seem like such a strange situation where you have Mark Noble almost berating the stewards at times for not attempting even to keep the supporters off the pitch. 2 of them who invaded the pitch, they were able to walk straight back into the stands without any security taking action. And maybe all this feeds into some of the confusion over the last few days about the deal that West Ham struck for the Olympic Stadium, what is ultimately the bargain of the century, whereby they're not actually responsible for the security within the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, you say it's the bargain of the century, but at this point you have to wonder whether it is or not. There's a story in Telegraph today which says that West Ham are basically at war with the stadium operators, and they're going to the High Court later this year, expecting it's sort of, it's a £100 million legal case, legal dispute at this point. Now, whether or not West Ham had to agree to that deal is open for debate, and whether they could have got a better deal as well. But they don't control the police bill. They don't pay the police bill. They aren't responsible for that. That's down to the LLDC. But at this point, they've spoken yesterday about wanting to get police in there for the final 5 games of the season. I think they're going to have to do that. Otherwise, there has been sort of cautious talk of the stadium being closed, games being played behind closed doors. The LLDC, as far as I'm aware, are although they're conscious of the fact that the having police in the grounds might be quite expensive for them to pay, they do have a responsibility towards public safety, and they did sort of say to me that for a game to be played behind closed doors, that the security demands placed in by the police and the safety advisory group would have had to be so kind of obstructive for them to not be able to agree to it. So I think probably we're looking at, in terms of what sanctions West Ham are likely to receive from the FA, probably a fine. I'd imagine that there will be fans in there, but as regards the deal, there are so many concerns there.
There have been all sorts of suggestions about West Ham and what they can do, right up to demolishing the Olympic Stadium and rebuilding a more football-orientated stadium. I don't think we're going to see that happen. But what are David Sullivan and David Gold's plans? Now that they are there, they're in a stadium that can hold up to 60,000. Even with that slight increase in revenue, there is more potential than there was at Upton Park. Ultimately, are they looking to get out of West Ham and find a big money owner to come in and they make a nice decent profit out of this? Or are they there for the long haul?
The indication from the owners after Sunday's game, where obviously they faced some serious criticism from the protesters, and it's made clear as well that the broader fan base aren't happy with them at all, is that they aren't going anywhere for the time being. I think there are certain restrictions in place which mean, in terms of the deal, which mean that it would actually kind of hit them a bit financially to sell the club in, I can't remember exactly what the time frame is, but in the next few years or so. David Sullivan has also obviously got two young sons, 2 teenage sons, or one of them's in his early 20s, and they've both sort of started working within the club. Jack Sullivan, who's the youngest son, is the managing director of West Ham Ladies. Dave Sullivan Jr. Has been sort of, getting to know other parts of the club. Sullivan told me in an interview in December that he may one day leave it to his sons. So that will be one to watch for the future. I mean, I think though a lot of West Ham fans would like to see new owners. On that sense, you maybe have to be careful what you wish for, and even look at what happened to Birmingham when Sullivan and Gold sold that club to Carson Young.
Yeah, Jacob, it's going to be an interesting few weeks to see what happens at West Ham. Thanks a lot for taking the call.
Thank you.
So problems at West Ham United and big problems at Manchester United because they're heading out of the Champions League. They trail Sevilla by 2-1 at Old Trafford. They're into the 93rd minute. 2 goals for Sevilla from the substitute Ben Yedder in the space of just a couple of minutes, doing huge damage to United. The first on 74 minutes, a really well taken finish, beating David De Gea down low. The second, a bit of a scrap in the, and David De Gea made an absolute mess of it. The ball just about the line. United then needed 3. They've come flying back. Romelu Lukaku scored a cracking acrobatic volley from close range, and they've had a couple of other half chances. They've gone all out, and Sevilla at times have looked nervous. They've had a couple of chances on the break, but really a shocking game and a half for Manchester United. A game in 3 quarters has really cost them. They showed little or no ambition at any stage until they went 2-0 down.
Yeah, and even I'm not sure if you even can read too much into what's happened at 2-0 down, because Sevilla were just trying to see it out a bit, and the game becomes a bit ragged and desperate. But yes, I mean, just dreadful goal. I mean, the second goal, Correa at the near post, unmarked, flicks it across, and Ben Yedder, just calamitous display. I mean, it really is. There's no sugarcoating this in any shape or form. A Sevilla side out of form have comprehensively done them.
It means Manchester United have still won just one knockout tie in the Champions League since 2011. And the final whistle has gone at Old Trafford. Manchester United are out of the Champions League. They've been beaten 2-1 by Sevilla at home. You'd have to say it's been a masterclass from Vincenzo Montella. Got his substitutions right, brought on Ben Yedder off the bench. Jose Mourinho goes marching back towards the tunnel, and the European dream is over for Manchester United.
Do you reckon Frank de Boer is thinking about, popping on to whatever social media channel he might use? I'd say he's fighting the temptation in some WhatsApp group.
If you're a journalist right now and you have Frank de Boer's number one, make that call, because he will be answering the phone. Manchester United beaten 2-1 by Sevilla. Roma are through to the quarterfinals. They've beaten Shakhtar Donetsk 1-0. They'll go through on away goals. We're going to take a quick break, and then we are going live to Old Trafford to talk to Kevin Kilban.
Football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by the Boylesports app. Cash out and in-play betting available in the App Store and Google Play Store.
At Expert Electrical, we make recycling easy by taking your old appliances back for free. Our latest catalogue is out on Friday and it's packed with amazing offers. See in-store and online for details. With 67 stores nationwide, there's a local expert near you. Find yours at expert.ie.
What's the smart way to fly stateside this summer? Aer Lingus lets you choose your own America with our biggest ever range of destinations. Fly non-stop to sunny Miami, touch down in historic Philadelphia from the 25th of March, or go straight to scenic Seattle from the 18th of May. Right now, fares are from just €159 each way as part of a return trip. And with US immigration pre-clearance before you fly, you can speed straight downtown. Smart sees more of North America. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
You learn something new every day. Did you know that the Nissan Qashqai is Ireland's best-selling crossover of all time? That unlike other crossovers, it also comes in petrol. It's Ireland's best-selling petrol crossover, in fact. Did you know that you can get up to €4,500 scrappage on a new petrol or diesel Qashqai, but only until March 31st? And did you know that rats laugh when they're tickled? But we don't recommend testing it. Talk to your local Nissan dealer today. Nissan. Innovation that excites. Terms and conditions apply.
Short back and sides, is it?
Yeah, it's my credit reunion today. I need to look my best.
Oh, don't worry. The credit union welcomes all members back to chat about their great range of loans for cars, holidays, home improvements.
You're a barber, right?
Hold still there for me.
Just the bare blade, is it?
Get a flexible loan from a lender who cares. Have you had your credit reunion? Credit Union. We look at things differently. Loans are subject to approval. Terms and conditions apply. If you do not meet the repayments on your loan, your account will go into arrears. This may affect your credit rating, which may limit your ability to access credit in the future. Credit unions in the Republic of Ireland are regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Rory here from Elephant Self-Storage. For a limited period, we are offering storage clients a free move-in service. Book a storage room now and our partner movers will collect your goods and bring them to our 800-room storage centre for free. This free offer is suitable for both household and business clients. There are some sensible conditions, but nothing stupid. Contact elephant.ie or phone 494 00 00. That is 494 00 00.
You said you'd drive a Mercedes-Benz one day. At the MSL Park Motors Spring Sales event, one day is now. We have exceptional savings available on hundreds of stunning pre-owned Mercedes-Benz models from the 5th to the 10th of March. So call into MSL Park Motors or visit msl.ie/spring sale.
Football on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by the Boylesports app. Cash out and in-play betting available in the App Store and Google Play Store.
Welcome back to Tuesday's Football Show. Nathan and Dan in studio. Manchester United are out of the Champions League. They've been beaten 2-1 by Sevilla at Old Trafford. 2 goals in the second half from the substitute Ben Yedder. United didn't offer a huge amount throughout the game, and and they have been made to pay. There's wild celebrations ongoing at Old Trafford by the Sevilla players with their supporters, and rightly so. We can go to Kevin Kilban right now, who's been watching the game. What do you say about that, Kevin? It was a smash and grabs of sorts in the end by Sevilla, but Manchester United offered so little throughout the two legs.
Yeah, you're spot on. I was listening to you there saying offering so little. That's exactly how it was, Nath. I mean, the way that they started the game, Man United, you're expecting, given how they played in the first leg, setting up the game, it wasn't a great performance. We all know that away from home over in Sevilla, but it was set up for a big United night. The atmosphere was probably generated throughout, I think, by Sevilla supporters. You can probably hear them to my right, down beside me here now. They were the ones that were generating the atmosphere. And as the game went on, United just became more nervy. They offered very little threat. One chance in the first half. I think it was only one shot on target, which was Marouane Fellaini. It was comfortable enough save for Sergio Rico in goal for Sevilla. And overall, Nathan, offered very little. United. Their attacking players in Alexis Sanchez, certainly behind him Jesse Lingard, and of course Marcus Rashford, they all offered very little. Lukaku was probably United's best outfield player, but he was just given no real support, and he was given no real quality played into him.
How much of that comes down to Jose Mourinho's team selection, going with Marouane Fellaini in the middle of midfield? Now, I understand Paul Pogba had been struggling with injury, but looking at that Sevilla midfield of Nzonzi and Banega, they seemed to completely dominate, particularly in the first half. United couldn't get a real foothold in the game and found themselves giving up more opportunities than really you would expect from a home team.
Yeah, I'd certainly lay the blame totally at Jose Mourinho for tonight. You know, so often you can question players on the pitch and their attitude, but United were just too cautious. I mean, Fellaini comes in because he brings physicality, and you want to be putting balls into the penalty area, and I think he did have a little bit of licence throughout the first half to get beyond Matic. Matic was the one that was sitting at the base of midfield, but I think in general the quality was lacking. There wasn't any real quality balls played into the penalty area, and I think if you're not getting that, what is the point in having Fellaini on the pitch? Because I think he was offering very little, certainly in moving the ball quickly, passing forward, getting Lukaku or Sanchez or Rashford, whoever it would be, one of the attacking players into the game. I just think he had little impact in the game, Fellaini, and that was why ultimately he was substituted. But in fairness, when Pogba was absolutely dreadful. In possession, he was awful, and you give far too many balls away. I just think United, with Mourinho tonight setting them up, I think he set them up in a cautious way.
Sevilla hadn't taken a single point from any of their games against the top four in the Spanish league. It's their first time through to a Champions League quarter-final in 60 years. They have a terrible record away from home in the European Cup as well. Granted, they've done well in the Europa League. This is a team that United should be, you would have to think, at home, going out aggressively, going after. They've just beaten Liverpool at the weekend. There's no need for a Jose Mourinho defensive masterclass. This is a game you go out and control, you win it well. Why doesn't he have the confidence in his players to let them go and do that?
Well, and I think you look at the striking options that they had. You mentioned there Ben Yedder coming on. He's the top scorer. They leave the top scorer on the bench tonight. So that's a suggestion that Vincenzo Montella, the Sevilla coach, is going to be a little bit more cautious, and rightly so. You're going to Old Trafford, you're going to Man United. There is still that fear coming here. So there was no real need for United tonight, I think, to play with that cautious mindset. Muriel, who played up front for Sevilla, was never going to run away from Smalling and Bailly. He never had that sort of pace to get.
Oh, we seem
fullbacks.
We just seem to have lost Kevin for a minute. We will try and get him back. He's obviously at Old Trafford, where there's a whole lot going on and hard to get a connection.
Right in the middle of it. Yeah.
He lays the blame totally at Jose Mourinho's door, and the criticism is going to be very harsh on Mourinho for this, because I definitely got the sense that this was a huge week for United. Now, they went and they beat Liverpool, and they were very convincing, and they got their tactics spot on. They found an area between Lovren and Alexander-Arnold they could really target. But even then, you could question why it's taken so long for Marcus Rashford to get back into the team. So many of the games against the top four, top six in the Premier League, he's tried the Jose defensive masterclass to try and suck the life out of the game, and by and large it hasn't been working. And again tonight, he's been caught out.
Yeah, and I think the killer as well is the criticism relates to tonight, but it probably relates to the first leg more than anything. That I know everyone can be a genius in hindsight with these things, and what's a good first leg result. But really, you look at this Barcelona team going into tomorrow night, that they got their goal in Chelsea. If you want to give yourself a strong position against a team that has frailties like Sevilla to do, you score away. And that. it left them on that knife edge. Of course, I still think the players have to take responsibility, some individuals, for not doing enough on the night to get it done.
Yeah.
But the approach away from home, I think, is as damning as anything that happened tonight in terms of team selection.
Kevin is back with us from Old Trafford. On that, you mentioned Paul Pogba, who came on and just seemed to give the ball away time and time again. But he's not the only one. Rashford couldn't make the same impact as he did against Liverpool at the weekend. Alexis Sanchez looks a shadow of the player that he was at Arsenal 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Hasn't settled in at all. Good energy, but just seems like a player totally shot in confidence right now. There seems to be, for all the money spent attacking wise, whatever about defensive problems, attacking wise, a whole host of problems.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Greg Sidus was in the TV3 studio tonight, Nathan, and he was saying pretty much the same thing about Alexis Sanchez in particular, saying he can't understand why he hasn't made an impact. He was maybe laying the suggestion that Jose Mourinho, in the way that he sets his side up with that negative mindset, is not necessarily getting the best out of those attacking players. I mean, I just listened to a little bit at the back end what Dan was saying there as well, and I've got to agree totally with what Dan was saying. One shot on target for United in 3 halves of football, that came in the first half here tonight. That's where United have lost the game, by not being a little bit more adventurous over there in Sevilla, because United would still have had to score here tonight regardless if they'd have lost that game 1-0. And I understand that's the cautious approach of Mourinho, and he's coming back thinking, right, we haven't been beat away from home. But that's where United, I think, have lost this game, I think, overall.
Was Mourinho complacent? Were United complacent? There was no great expectation from Sevilla when the draw was made that of many of the English teams, United had one of the easier draws, that they were at home, they'd got their scoreless draw, they were confident they would score goals. Did you get a sense from United from the off in the stadium that there was the intensity you would need from a team in the last 16 of the Champions League?
No, totally not at all. And that is why the nervousness and the edginess probably set in around Old Trafford very, very early. I think it was maybe 10 or 15 minutes in when you started to hear the groans going around the stadium. That was because of the way that United were playing. I think they were moving the ball far too slow. I mentioned Lukaku early on. They got him into the game in the first 20 seconds of the game, and he bullied the two centre-halves, Kieran, and who was the other lad? Sorry, the other centre-half tonight. Longley, yeah. He just absolutely bullied them out of it. And you could see Lukaku was up for it tonight. He wanted the ball to be played into him early, but far too often, with Fellaini and even Matic tonight as well, he was guilty of it. I think they were going sideways and backwards. They weren't necessarily getting the forward players into the game, particularly Lukaku, and that was why they lost it. I think it was too cautious, and that is when the edginess set in, and that built throughout. And then when Ben Yedder came on, he just exploited United's weakness defensively.
How big a setback do you think this is for Mourinho? They're going to finish second in the league, but they could end up losing the title to Manchester City in 3 weeks' time. They're going to finish maybe 15, 17, 18 points behind Manchester City. They're a million miles away from Pep Guardiola's side. And in Europe, they look a million miles away from them as well. The one thing you'd think watching them tonight was, even if they got through, there's not many teams left in the last 8 that they'd be able to beat with that sort of attitude. Is it a big setback, or is this something they can actually take, learn from, build on next season?
No, I think it's a massive setback. I mean, let's be quite honest now. Sevilla are not one of the strongest sides in Europe. I think we all thought when United were drawn against Sevilla, this is a good chance for United to get to the last 8. It's a huge blow for them. Yes, they probably are. They're not going to make up the distance. They're not going to get anywhere near Man City. City have got the league now. That's done and dusted. If they were to lose the league then at the Etihad against City in a couple of weeks' time, that is the ultimate then, really. And then this season then does look like a complete disaster, because tonight, I think we're looking for a big European night. Are we going to get Jose Mourinho as a Manchester United manager showing us he's capable of taking the Man United side? I know, yes, they won the Europa League last season, yeah, but it was the manner in which they won it last season, being a bit cautious. And we all felt, ultimately, yes, there was a chance for United to go on and do what he's done at Inter Milan and what he's done at Porto. But I think anyone who's watched football over the last years, we all realise, I think, you've got to be a bit more adventurous if you're going to go and win the Champions League. And ultimately, Mourinho just doesn't set his side up in that manner.
That doesn't seem as though that was a performance acceptable for Manchester United, for any leading European team at home in a knockout game in the Champions League, to be that passive, to go out against the Sevilla side without even ever looking like you were going to land some sort of a knockout blow.
Yeah, you're passive at home, and I know that, yes, you can't really look back too much and think, yeah, how do Man United play Europe? And you get the energy, you get the buzz when you're at Old Trafford for a big Champions League night. But ultimately, that's what's in a lot of supporters' minds when they're coming here tonight. They're expecting United on the front foot, going to close down Sevilla's defenders, put them under pressure, serious pressure. And tonight, it just wasn't there from United. You mentioned they're too passive. With the ball, yes, far too slow in moving the ball. But without the ball tonight, there was no energy in United's performance. They didn't go and close Sevilla down. And you mentioned Banega, particularly Nzonzi. We've all seen Nzonzi play for Stoke or Blackburn Rovers in the Premier League. He's a good footballer, don't get me wrong, but should he be competing alongside the likes of Matic and Delaney, Pogba, Tommy, whoever it be? Could he get a Man United side? I would suggest no, he can't.
All right, Kev, we're going to have to let you go. The Sevilla supporters sound like they're enjoying themselves. Turn on your headphones and listen to Graham Souness, who's on TV3 at the moment. I can't hear what he's saying, but I can tell you he's angry. He's very, very angry. We'll see you in studio tomorrow evening. Kevin will be back with us tomorrow night. Kenny Cunningham is joining us in studio as well. We'll take a quick break. Manchester United are out of the Champions League.
On News Talk.
As your business grows, demands on your cash flow grow too. Funding supplies to satisfy customer orders can be a tricky balancing act. At GrowCap Finance, we can help. We provide comprehensive purchase funding solutions for established businesses. We specialize in import-export solutions, and we offer competitive rates, giving your business global purchasing power. To find out how we can help grow your business, contact us at growcapfinance.com. Terms and conditions apply.
We all know Appliances Delivered has the lowest prices in Ireland. Washing machines from $179.95. Dishwashers from $229.95. Fridge freezers from $169.95. Plus, they offer next day delivery. But they also sell stuff that's, well, a bit more crack. Things like headphones, table lamps, electric showers, baby monitors, popcorn makers, hoverboards? Really? Are you sure this is the right script?
Just read the line, please.
Okay. AppliancesDelivered.ie. Why pay more?
My dad was a Jack Russell. Loved chasing cars. Me, I prefer being in them. The whole family out, windows down, wind in my hair. Lick a bit of ice cream off the back seat. Any flavour, any car. You see, we have AA car insurance, so we're covered to drive any car. Well, they are. I don't drive, obviously. Though I do have a licence.
With AA car insurance, our members get fully comprehensive insurance to drive other cars too. Go to the AA.ie and get €100 off today. Who's got clever car insurance? Excludes value product. €100 discount available until the 31st of May 2018. Minimum premium of €280. Acceptance criteria, terms and conditions apply. AA Ireland Limited, trading as AA Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Gary, I came as quick as I could. What's the matter, Larry? Every day this week, the Irish Sun have only gone and got a Cheltenham Festival pull-out and a free €5 match bet with Ladbrokes from Tuesday.
You all sitting around?
Nay!
We better trot on and get a copy.
Pick up the Irish Sun for €1 and get everything you need for Cheltenham. Please gamble responsibly.
Everyone always says you need to give it 100%, or better yet, 110%. But what if you were to give it 0%? A whole lot of nothing. In fact, we think 0 is the perfect percentage to give. That's why from now until the 31st of March, you can drive off in the brand new Opel Grandland X with 0% APR finance. Zero. Zilch. Nada. And to make sure you get to truly experience everything the Grandland X has to offer, you can even take it home for a full 24-hour test drive experience. Book your 24-hour test drive today at opel.ie and drive home in the new Grandland X 100% happy with 0% APR. Opel. The future is everyone's. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Deposit required. This is a hire purchase agreement provided by Bank of Ireland Finance, a registered trading name of Bank of Ireland. Available at participating dealers.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
You're very welcome back. So Manchester United out of the Champions League, beaten 2-1 at Old Trafford by Sevilla. Earlier this evening we asked you to identify this mystery voice.
Must be worth about £134 million.
Who is it, Dan?
I think I know that voice. It's not Michael O'Neill, is it? No. Is it the?
Is it
R1?
It's Martin Michael O'Neill.
Martin Michael O'Neill.
Isn't Martin O'Neill's middle name Michael O'Neill? And Michael O'Neill's middle name is Martin?
Is that true?
I read it somewhere, so I'm
100%.
100%. I've just said it in the radio, so it'll
exists.
spread from there. It's out there now. Somebody can Wikipedia it and get back to us if it's not, but I'm going with it.
Or Nathan will go and change it on Wikipedia later if it isn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Get proven right with these things. The winner of our tickets for the Ireland-New Zealand Autumn International at the Aviva Stadium is Gerard Quinlan in Clonmel. That is with thanks to our friends at Outdoor Revolution. So OTB AM is back live across our social channels tomorrow from 7:45 a.m. with Ger and Owen. How harsh do you think the fallout for this is going to be for Jose Mourinho?
It's going to be pretty severe. I think it's going to be brutal. Won't be like those scenes in Greece at the weekend where this owner come onto the pitch with a gun in his holster. Not going to be that intense.
Well, the Glazers would have to turn up for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. They'd probably send some sort of underling down to do it. But it's pretty brutal. I think it's one of these things that it's sort of like Ireland in a strange way, that if your style of football isn't that great to watch, you live and die by the results. So when you suffer a cataclysmic result, then everything piles up on it. The bad negative approach, and just the pure fact that you've gone out of something. I think that intensifies it. If you die with your boots on, whatever the excuse
probably
is,
have something to clasp onto, even if they do go out, and that's probably going to be part of the problem for Mourinho over the next couple of months. Is City are going to be lifting that Premier League title, possibly against United. There's an opportunity now for City and Liverpool to go and win some big games in Europe, while United are sitting idly by, going through the motions in the Premier League, because they've nothing to play for now except for the FA Cup. They play in the FA Cup this weekend. There's no great ties. They're playing Brighton.
I was thinking that. Yeah,
we're talking to Chris Hughton on Thursday night show actually ahead of that game.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard for them to leave honourably. Whereas the other teams, you have to go out to Real or Barca or something. There's an element of triumph about it.
All right, good stuff, Dan. Enjoy your day off tomorrow. Enjoy Cheltenham. Any tips, send them my way. I need them. I'll be back tomorrow evening from 7 o'clock. What's going to be a good one? We've got Kev and Kenny Cunningham in studio.
Knowledge.
Quite literally anything could happen. That is all for now. Tom Dunn is up next. There may be tears from Tom, I suspect. Good night. Ooh. Heat in here.
That's fucking ridiculous.